Hello there. Welcome to Danny Night Stories. I'm here to help you relax whether you are sleeping or just want to rest. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Now relax and enjoy. Minecraft Horror Story: The Return of Herobrine. Chapter 1: A Quiet Return. Steve came home at sunset with a boat full of maps and nothing chasing him. For the first few minutes, that was all the evening was. The square sun settled behind the spruce hills, turning the western clouds orange. Steve guided his oak boat through the reeds at the mouth of the river and listened to the soft knock of wood against water. 2 bundles of sugar cane lay in the storage chest behind him. Beside them were 6 unexplored maps, a handful of emeralds, a saddle, and a single blue orchid. He had carried almost 4,000 blocks because Alex liked them. His world was called Cedar Vale. It was a hard survival world, 642 Minecraft days old, and almost every hill around Spawn carried some sign of the life he and his friends had built there. A stone bridge crossed the river ahead. Lanterns hung beneath its arches. Beyond it stood a windmill with wool sails, a barn roofed in dark oak, and a 3-story house of spruce and cobblestone built against the side of a low mountain. Smoke rose from the campfires hidden in its chimneys. The wheat field shone gold in the last light. As Steve passed under the bridge, one lantern failed to light. Its reflection remained in the water, brighter than the others, and split into 2 small white squares. The boat disturbed the surface, and the squares vanished. Steve looked up at the dark lantern, decided its redstone connection had failed while he was away, and continued toward the dock. Steve had been away for 9 days, filling the western edge of the map wall. He had crossed a warm ocean, slept beneath acacia trees, traded with 2 villages, and found an abandoned mine shaft opening into a lush cave. It had been a useful journey, but he was glad to see the house again. His wolf, Flint, was waiting on the dock. The animal stood as soon as Steve climbed from the boat. Its red collar flashed in the lantern light and its tail lifted. Steve fed it the last piece of cooked cod from his inventory, then carried the blue orchid up the path. He stopped first at the barn to check the animals. The sheep were crowded together beneath the loft. The cows had somehow pushed open one of the fence gates, though none had escaped. He closed it, gathered 3 eggs from the chicken coop, and continued toward the house. Alex was not there. A sign beside her empty armor stand said that she had taken the south road to Hollowbridge to trade for mending books. She expected to return before the next sunset. Rowan, their redstone builder, had not visited Cedar Vale in weeks. His base lay beyond the nether hub, in a mesa where he spent most of his time constructing machines that were either brilliant or on fire. Steve placed the orchid in a flower pot on Alex's windowsill. He emptied his packs, repaired his diamond pickaxe at the anvil, and added the new maps to the western wall. When he finished, Cedar Vale stretched across 25 frames: rivers, forests, villages, the black square of the woodland mansion, and the pale blue emptiness of the ocean. At the center was their house, marked with a green banner. The new maps fitted perfectly, except for one. The map covering the northwest birch forest showed a small grey square where there should have been trees. Steve assumed he had failed to explore the chunk fully. Maps were fussy things. A narrow valley or overhanging hill could leave a patch that looked unfinished. He took the map down, stepped outside, and climbed to the roof to compare it with the land. From there, he could see the birch ridge beyond the wheat field. White trunks rose between the darker oaks. A few bees drifted around the hives near the river. Nothing moved on the ridge except a pig. Steve was about to climb down when he noticed another player standing beside the pig. The figure was too far away for detail. It wore a blue shirt and dark trousers, and for one pleased moment Steve thought Alex had returned early by a different path. He raised an arm. The figure did not wave back. It stood perfectly still at the edge of the fog, facing the house. The pig wandered past it, without reacting. Steve waited, then pulled out his spyglass. The ridge was empty. There was no running figure, no flash of armor between the trees, and no name tag fading with distance. Only the pig remained, looking down at the grass. Steve lowered the spyglass. The square sun touched the horizon. Behind him, Flint gave one short bark from inside the house. There were sensible explanations. Alex might have removed her armor and crouched, hiding her name. She might have stepped behind a trunk, just as Steve raised the glass. Rowan might have travelled overland for once and decided to play a joke. The figure had only been visible for 2 or 3 seconds, and distant shapes in Minecraft had a habit of becoming whatever a player expected them to be. Steve went inside before hostile mobs began to spawn. He fed the furnaces, brewed 3 awkward potions, and sorted the last of his supplies. Nothing else happened. He slept through the night. In the morning he crossed the wheat field to inspect the grey patch on the map. He took Flint and carried an iron axe, bread, torches, and the map in his offhand. It was a calm walk. Skeletons burned beneath the trees. Dew-coloured particles drifted from the grass. At the river, Steve repaired a section of fence and replanted 2 saplings beside the path. By the time he reached the ridge, he had almost forgotten the figure. Then he saw the grove. 23 oak trees stood in a rough circle among the birches. Every leaf block had been removed. The bare trunks rose into the clear sky like pillars. No saplings lay on the ground. No sticks or apples waited to be collected. Whoever had stripped the trees had done it long enough ago for every dropped item to disappear, yet Steve had crossed that same ridge before leaving on his journey, and the grove had been normal then. Flint stopped at the first trunk. The wolf's ears lowered. Steve examined the clearing. The grass blocks had not been dug. There were no scaffolds, no dirt towers, and no sign of a camp. The trunks had not even been harvested. Someone had taken only the leaves, 1 block at a time, from ground level to crown. At the centre of the grove was a hole exactly 2 blocks wide and 2 blocks high. It entered the hillside in a straight line. The walls were bare stone. There were no oars, no torches, and no bends. Steve placed a torch at the entrance and looked in. The light reached perhaps 15 blocks before the passage continued into darkness. Flint whined and backed away. Steve did not enter. He had spent too long in survival worlds to walk unprepared into a tunnel he had not dug. Instead, he blocked the opening with cobblestone, marked the location on the map, and returned home by the river. Alex arrived near midday wearing enchanted diamond armor and leading a llama she had acquired somewhere along the South Road. She found Steve on the bridge, staring back toward the ridge. "You could help with the luggage," she called. Steve took 2 bundles from the llama and told her what he had seen. Alex listened without laughing. That concerned him more than laughter would have. "Rowan?" she asked. "Maybe. He hates cutting leaves." "That is not evidence." "It is nearly evidence." They stored the books, then returned to the grove together. Alex inspected the trunks, the block tunnel, and the surrounding terrain. She found one detail Steve had missed. Every bare oak stood 1 block apart from the next, close enough that their leaves should originally have joined into a single canopy. The trees had not grown naturally in a circle. Someone had planted them. On the northern edge of the clearing, Alex dug beneath a patch of moss and uncovered a redstone torch. It burned with its weak, unnatural red glow. A second torch lay 4 blocks beneath the first. A third was buried 4 blocks below that. They followed the line down. Each torch was separated by exactly 4 blocks of dirt or stone. The trail descended beside the sealed passage as if marking its depth. At the 12th torch, they found a pocket in the rock containing a single chest. Inside was Steve's first wooden pickaxe. He recognized it because of the name above its durability bar. First Night. He had named it as a joke hundreds of days earlier, then placed it in an item frame above his bed. He had noticed the empty frame when he returned from the west, but assumed Alex had moved it. Alex looked at him. "I did not touch that." The pickaxe had 1 point of durability left. Beneath it lay a blank sheet of paper. Steve picked up the paper. For an instant, black letters appeared across it. "I kept it." Then the paper became blank again. Alex took it from him. She saw nothing. They carried the chest, the torch, and the pickaxe back to Cedar Vale. Before leaving, Steve replaced the cobblestone at the tunnel mouth with obsidian. The journey home was silent. Flint stayed close to Steve's leg. That evening, Alex checked every door, cellar, and attic in the house while Steve sent a message through the nether hub. Rowan answered almost immediately. He denied planting the grove, taking the pickaxe, or visiting Cedar Vale at all. He offered to come in the morning. Steve placed the wooden pickaxe inside an ender chest. He then opened the map wall. The grey square in the northwest had grown. It now covered the entire birch ridge, including the grove where they had just stood. A thin grey line extended from it across the river, through the wheat field, and ended at their house. Alex tried a fresh map. It showed the same thing. Outside, the sun disappeared. The lanterns beneath the bridge lit one after another. Neither Steve nor Alex had touched the switch. Then Flint began growling at the upstairs window. Steve climbed slowly. Alex followed with a diamond sword. The wolf stood beneath the glass, body rigid, staring toward the wheat. A player stood among the crops. It had Steve's square head, Steve's blue shirt, and Steve's dark blue trousers. It carried no tool and wore no armor. The wheat reached its waist. Above it, there was no name tag. The figure looked directly at the window. This time, Steve did not need a spyglass to see its eyes. They were two solid squares of white. Alex opened the front door and ran outside before Steve could stop her. He followed, sword drawn. They crossed the yard, vaulted the fence, and pushed into the field from opposite sides. The figure did not run. It watched them approach until they were less than 10 blocks away. Then every torch in the field went out. Darkness folded over the wheat. Zombies groaned from the riverbank. Steve swung at the place where the figure had been and struck only air. Alex relit a torch. The crops moved in a line toward the far fence, as if something invisible were walking through them. Flint barked from the house. The movement stopped. In the center of the field, 4 rows of fully grown wheat broke at once. Items scattered across the soil, revealing 2 words cut into the dark farmland beneath. Welcome home. Chapter 2. The Trees That Faced the House. Rowan arrived at sunrise carrying enough equipment for a siege. He came through the nether portal in iron armor with a crossbow, 2 stacks of redstone dust, bells, tripwire hooks, observers, pistons, and a carved pumpkin on his head. He wore the pumpkin until Alex threatened to push him back through the portal. Rowan was the sort of builder who distrusted any mystery that could not survive being wired to a clock. He inspected the wheat field first. The message remained visible even after Steve replanted the broken crops. Its letters had been dug 1 block deep and lined with soul sand. No footprints led to it. No fence gate had opened during the night. A hidden dispenser system could break the wheat, Rowan said. There is no system, Alex replied. Then we shall prove there is no system. He removed the soil beneath half the field. They found roots, stone, a small pocket of gravel, and nothing mechanical. Rowan searched the house next. He checked the walls for hidden passages, tested the daylight sensors, and opened every barrel. At the upstairs window he found a white concrete block placed on the outside sill. A second block lay beneath Steve's pillow. There was nothing supernatural about white concrete. What mattered was that Cedar Vale contained none. Steve and Alex used quartz for pale builds, and Rowan was the only one of them who kept concrete powder. His storage room, however, was 6,000 blocks away. By midday, Rowan had stopped offering simple explanations. They spent the afternoon building alarms. Tripwires crossed every path to the house. Bells hung above the doors. Pressure plates were connected to redstone lamps in Steve's room. Snow golems watched the field from fenced towers, ready to throw at anything hostile. Rowan even placed observers behind sections of the outer wall, so that removing a block would sound a note block beneath the floor. The system was inelegant, excessive, and comforting. When they finished, the three friends sat on the bridge and ate bread while the sun lowered over the river. For a short while, Cedar Vale felt normal again. Villagers worked in the trading hall. Bees returned to their hives. Alex teased Rowan about the pumpkin. Rowan claimed it was advanced protective equipment. Steve added the last western map to the wall and covered the grey patch with a banner. At dusk, one of the snow golems turned its head toward the birch ridge. Then the second did the same. Both stared northwest. Neither threw a snowball. Rowan rang the nearest bell manually. The villagers hurried indoors. Steve checked the player list. It showed 3 names: Steve, Alex, and Rowan. For one frame, a 4th line appeared beneath them. There was no name on it, only a connection bar with 5 full green marks. Then it vanished. "Did you see that?" Steve asked. Alex had. Rowan had not. He opened the list repeatedly, but the 4th line did not return. Night fell. They decided not to sleep. If one of them entered a bed while the others remained awake, the world would not skip to morning, and no one wanted to be unconscious while a nameless player stood outside. The first alarm sounded shortly after moonrise. A bell rang above the barn. Steve, Alex, and Rowan ran from the house. Every tripwire remained intact. The barn doors were closed. Inside, the sheep pressed against the far wall while the cows stared at the loft. Rowan climbed the ladder first. The hay bales were undisturbed. A chest in the corner stood open. Inside lay 36 oak leaves. The stack had been renamed One Tree. While they examined it, a second bell rang at the house. Then a third chimed beside the trading hall. A 4th sounded from the bridge. The bells did not ring together. The noise travelled around Cedar Vale in a slow circle, each one beginning as the previous one stopped. Something was walking the perimeter. The snow golems followed it with their heads. Steve and Alex ran toward the bridge. Rowan stayed at the barn controls. From the bridge, Steve could see the lamps connected to the tripwires. None were lit. The final bell sounded at the north path. Beyond it, between 2 lanterns, stood the white-eyed figure. It was perhaps 30 blocks away. Fog softened its blue shirt and dark trousers, but its eyes remained sharp. It looked less like a creature wearing Steve's shape than a second Steve from whom every expression had been removed. Alex raised her bow. "Wait," Steve said. The figure tilted its head. From the barn behind them, Rowan shouted. Steve turned for less than a second. When he looked back, the path was empty. Alex's arrow struck the ground where the figure had stood. They found Rowan in the loft, staring at the open chest. The 36 leaf blocks were gone. In their place was a written book. The cover said, Cedar Vale. The first page described Steve returning by boat at sunset. The second described the bare grove. The third described Alex breaking wheat in the dark. The details were exact, including words they had spoken when no one else was near. The writing did not read like a journal. It read like someone telling their story after it had already ended. Rowan turned to the final written page. At that moment, the words appeared one letter at a time. They heard the bells. They followed the bells. They never looked under the house. The next page was blank. Steve was already climbing down. Their house had no conventional basement. Storage rooms occupied the first floor, and a narrow cellar beneath the kitchen held barrels of food. They searched it anyway. Alex moved the barrels. Rowan checked the stone with a piston. Steve compared the foundation against old screenshots on the map wall. One corner was wrong. Beneath the kitchen stairs, the cobblestone wall sat 2 blocks closer than it did in the earliest painting Rowan had made of the house. Steve broke the first stone. Cold air entered the cellar. Behind the wall was a corridor lined with oak planks. It ran beneath the house toward the mountain. Redstone torches glowed along one side, placed 4 blocks apart. On the opposite wall hung item frames. The first held Steve's old leather cap. The second held Alex's stone sword from the day she joined the world. The third held a broken repeater Rowan had once thrown into lava after it ruined a sorting machine. There were dozens more: lost tools, discarded maps, name tags, a clock that had vanished from the barn, Flint's first red collar. Small things the world should have deleted or despawned had been collected and displayed beneath their home. "How long has this been here?" Alex whispered. Rowan examined the planks. "Long enough." The final frame was empty. Beneath it, a sign read, "Rowan." They backed out of the corridor. Steve sealed it with iron blocks while Rowan placed 3 observers and a bell against the entrance. None of them suggested exploring farther during the night. They closed the wall. They counted the windows. They forgot the roof. Alex looked up. Slow footsteps crossed the planks directly above them. The attic had only one entrance, a ladder in the main room. Steve stood beneath it with his sword. Alex aimed a crossbow. Rowan held flint and steel for reasons known only to Rowan. The footsteps stopped over the ladder. Dust particles fell from the trap door. Steve opened it. The attic was empty. Chests stood closed beneath the beams. Moonlight entered through a narrow window at the far end. Steve climbed halfway and swept his sword across the floor. Something moved behind the glass. 2 white squares looked in from outside. The window was 3 floors above the ground. There was no balcony, ledge, or scaffold. Herobrine stood against the glass as calmly as though the night itself were holding him there. Steve froze. The figure raised one arm and pointed down. The bell beneath the cellar began ringing. It rang so hard that the sound shook through the house. The redstone lamps flashed. Note blocks fired in wild succession as observers detected blocks changing inside the sealed corridor. Then the kitchen floor opened. Oak planks folded downward in a perfect 2x2 square. Stone stairs descended into darkness where no stairs had existed a moment earlier. Herobrine vanished from the attic window. from below came the slow, familiar sound of a pickaxe breaking stone. One strike, a pause, another strike. The sound moved deeper beneath the house, inviting them to follow. Chapter 3. The Mine with No Bottom. They waited until morning before entering. No sunlight reached the new stairwell, but the decision still mattered. Daylight meant fewer mobs near the surface, active villagers, and a visible route back if they had to run. Rowan packed redstone torches to mark every junction. Alex carried potions, shields, and a bow. Steve brought the old wooden pickaxe from the ender chest. Flint refused to cross the first step. Steve ordered the wolf to sit in the kitchen. Flint obeyed, though it continued to whine as the 3 players descended. The stairs passed beneath the cellar and joined the hidden corridor. The display of lost objects remained untouched, except for the final empty frame. It now contained Rowan's carved pumpkin. Rowan had left it on the bridge. He pulled it from the frame and examined it. 2 squares of white wool had been placed inside the eye holes. "Advanced protective equipment," Alex said quietly. No one laughed. Beyond the display, the corridor became bare stone. Its measurements never changed. 2 blocks wide, 2 blocks high, perfectly straight. Redstone torches appeared every 4 blocks, always on the left wall. Their dim light made the spaces between them seem longer than they were. After 200 blocks, the tunnel should have passed out beneath the mountain. Instead, the coordinates showed that they were still directly below the house. Rowan checked twice. "That is not possible." Steve looked back. The corridor behind them seemed straight, but the entrance was no longer visible. Red torches receded into blackness. They continued downward. The walls changed from stone to deep slate. Coal vanished first, then iron, then every natural ore. There were no caves, gravel pockets, or water. The passage cut through solid blocks with a mechanical precision. At depth -58, they reached an oak door. Behind it was Steve's first mine. He knew the room immediately. A crafting table stood beside a furnace. 3 normal torches marked a staircase. A chest sat beneath a patch of coal ore, and a sign on the wall read, "Diamonds this way." An old joke pointing toward a dead end. But Steve's first mine was near the surface, under the hill beside Spawn. He had abandoned it before Alex joined Cedar Vale. It could not exist below deep slate. Alex opened the chest. Inside were stacks of cobblestone, raw iron, rotten flesh, and 1 music disc, number 13. Rowan did not touch it. Steve walked to the staircase. Every block matched his memory, including a square where he had accidentally mined into the river and plugged the leak with dirt. He broke that dirt now. There was no water behind it, there was an eye. It filled the 1 block opening, white and without a pupil. Steve stumbled back. The blocks snapped into place before Alex could see through. They heard rapid footsteps on the other side of the wall, moving away through solid stone. Rowan placed TNT against the dirt. "No," Alex said. "A small amount." "There is no small amount with you." Instead, Steve mined around the plug. The stone opened into another 2x2 passage, running parallel to the first. It was unlit, but something at the far end reflected the torchlight. Herobrine stood there. He was farther away than the tunnel should have allowed. Fog occupied the passage, pale and dense, though they were deep underground. His white eyes floated in it. Alex fired an arrow. The arrow travelled 10 blocks and stopped in mid-air. For a moment it hung motionless. Then it turned around. Steve raised his shield. The arrow struck hard enough to drive him against the wall. When he lowered the shield, Herobrine was gone. The normal torches in the old mine extinguished one after another. Darkness reached for them. Rowan lit the nearest block with flint and steel, and in the firelight they saw new holes opening in the walls. 2x2 tunnels appeared wherever the shadows touched, each containing a distant blue-shirted figure. "Back," Steve ordered. They returned to the redstone corridor, but the oak door led somewhere else. Instead of the passage, they found an abandoned mine shaft spreading through a vast cavern. Wooden supports crossed a drop too deep for their torches to reveal. Cobwebs filled the upper galleries. Rails ran over empty air and disappeared into fog. Somewhere below, a mine cart began moving. Its wheels clicked slowly along a rail. The sound circled the cavern, but never drew closer. Alex marked the doorway and led them across the first bridge. Cave spiders watched from webs without attacking. Bats hung in the air, wings extended but still, as if the game had paused everything except the 3 players. At the next junction they found a wall of signs. Most were blank. A few contained single phrases. "Do not follow your own footsteps." He stands where the world stops drawing. If you see your house, do not go inside. The oldest sign was made of pale oak, a wood none of them had used. Its message had nearly faded. He has Steve's face because Steve was first. Rowan read it twice. Who wrote these? Behind him, Alex answered, "You did." They turned. Alex was standing beside Steve. Another Alex stood at the far end of the bridge. The second Alex wore no armor. Her orange hair rested over one shoulder, and her green shirt was torn at the sleeve. There was no name tag above her. "Do not move," Steve said. Both Alexis looked at him. The one beside Steve raised her shield. "I am not planning to." The distant Alex smiled. Her eyes turned white. Every cave spider dropped from the webs. They fled as the bridge filled with mobs. Rowan fired his crossbow into the supports, knocking loose gravel. Alex threw a splash potion of harming behind them. Steve cut through 2 webs and followed the rails into a lower tunnel. The minecart sound grew louder. It raced past on a parallel track with no rider inside. A sign in the cart flashed by. 3 entered. They reached a junction. Steve placed a torch on the right and turned left. Alex shouted that the exit was the other way. Rowan insisted they had come from below. Their markers had moved. Every redstone torch now stood on the wrong wall. Behind them, stone broke with patient, measured strikes. Herobrine was mining toward them. They chose the uphill passage and ran. It ended in a circular chamber lit by soul lanterns. At its centre stood a model of Cedar Vale. The model was enormous and exact. Tiny blocks formed the house, barn, bridge, fields, and birch ridge. Armour stands no taller than flowers represented Steve, Alex, and Rowan. A redstone lamp glowed inside each miniature building. Rowan approached, despite Steve's warning. Redstone dust ran beneath glass around the model. It led to 4 levers labelled House, Barn, Village, and Mine. The lever marked Barn moved by itself. The tiny barn caught fire. Far above them, so faintly that it might have been imagination, a bell began ringing. Steve pulled out a map. The green banner at Cedar Vale flickered red. "It is happening up there," he said. The house lever moved. Flames spread across the model's roof. Alex broke the redstone line with her pickaxe. The dust immediately replaced itself. Rowan smashed the levers. 4 more appeared on the opposite side. Then Steve noticed the 5th structure. Beyond the miniature birch ridge stood a dark tower none of them had built. At its top, a white block flashed twice. The armour stand representing Rowan turned its head. It walked away from the tiny house and entered the tower. The real Rowan gasped. His name tag flickered. For 1 second, his eyes became solid white. Alex struck him with the flat of her shield. Rowan fell, blinking. His eyes were normal again, but his health had dropped to half. "I heard you," he said to Steve. "I did not speak. You told me to come home." The figure representing Steve now stood on the roof of the model, its tiny face turned toward them. The chamber doors slammed shut. Fog poured from the walls. Through it came dozens of Steve's footsteps, some walking, some running, some stopping directly behind them. Alex placed her back against Steve's. Rowan lit TNT at the base of the model. This time, no one objected. The explosion broke the glass, the levers, and half the miniature valley. A crack opened in the chamber floor, revealing water below. The 3 players jumped. They fell into the river beside Cedar Vale. The transition was instant. One moment Steve was dropping through black stone beneath bedrock. The next, he struck cold water beneath the bridge. Daylight burned above him. He surfaced coughing and saw smoke rolling from the barn. They climbed ashore and fought the fire. The barn roof was gone, but the animals survived. The house had not burned. Villagers emerged from hiding as if nothing unusual had happened. On the map wall, the miniature dark tower now appeared northwest of the ridge. They looked through the house window. No tower stood on the horizon. Rowan sat at the kitchen table, still pale from the mine. Steve gave him bread and a regeneration potion. Alex checked his eyes twice. "I am myself," Rowan said. "What did the voice say?" Steve asked. Rowan stared at the wooden table. "It sounded like you. It said Cedar Vale was never ours. It said we only built on top of it." The old wooden pickaxe lay between them. Its last point of durability was gone, though no one had used it. The item should have broken and vanished. Instead, the pickaxe remained, its durability bar extending below, empty, into a thin strip of white. Its name had changed. It now read, "His first tool." Outside, Flint began barking from the wheat field. The wolf had been tied to a fence post. Beside it, 4 blocks of gold had appeared in a square around a piece of burning netherrack. A redstone torch stood on top. Steve recognized the shape. Years earlier, on his 10th day in Cedar Vale, he had built a crude monument near spawn after finding his first gold. He had torn it down the next morning. Or he believed he had. At the edge of the field, Herobrine watched the fire. This time, he was close enough that Steve could see every square of his face. He lifted one hand. The nameless 4th line returned to the player list. And beside it, in pale grey letters, appeared a single word. Home. Chapter 4. The Player with No Name. The monument could not be broken. Steve tried first with his pickaxe. The gold blocks showed no cracks. Alex poured water over the netherrack, but the fire continued beneath it. Rowan placed a piston against the redstone torch. The piston activated. Its wooden head passed through the torch, and the block remained exactly where it was. Herobrine had vanished from the field, but the 4th connection stayed on the player list. Rowan opened the written book. The earlier pages had been replaced. On the first page was a date, day 10. On the second was a description of Steve building the monument. Steve remembered that day in fragments. Cedar Vale had still been unnamed. He had slept in a dirt shelter near the river, mined enough gold for 4 blocks, and placed them around netherrack because he wanted something bright beside his house. He remembered lighting the fire. He remembered seeing smoke over the hill. He did not remember the redstone torch. The next page described him waking during the night to the sound of footsteps. He had opened the door and seen another player beyond the fog. Thinking it was a visual error, he had closed the world. When he returned, the monument was gone. "That did happen," Steve said slowly. "I thought I dreamed it." The final page held one sentence. "You did not remove him. You stopped looking." Rowan stepped away from the book. The 3 friends understood the pattern at roughly the same time. The bare grove, the buried corridor, the collection of lost items, and the model beneath bedrock were not new. They were signs of something that had remained in Cedar Vale for hundreds of days, active in places no player visited, and patient whenever those places were unloaded. Steve's return from the west had not brought Herobrine into the world. It had brought Steve close enough to notice him again. They decided to leave Cedar Vale. The plan was temporary. Rowan had a fortified base in the mesa with spare equipment and a portal that connected to the northern branch of the Nether Hub. If the haunting centered on Spawn, distance might weaken it. If it followed, they would at least have open ground, defensive walls, and a redstone system capable of dropping half a mountain onto an unwanted guest. They packed only what they could carry. Steve took the best tools, maps, potions, food, and flint. Alex collected the mending books and blue orchid. Rowan emptied the valuables from the storage room into shulker boxes. As they worked, Cedar Vale quietly changed around them. The windows became white concrete when no one faced them. The stairs beneath the kitchen disappeared. Every clock showed midnight, despite the afternoon sun. Villagers gathered at the north wall of the trading hall and stared through the stone. One by one, the tamed cats sat and turned toward the wheat field. The monument's fire grew taller. Steve tried the exit path 3 times. Each time he reached the nether portal, he found himself back at the house. The first loop was subtle. He crossed the bridge, past the windmill, and climbed the portal hill. When he stepped through the purple surface, he emerged from the front door of Cedar Vale. The second time, Alex tied a blue banner beside the portal. They entered together. They came out of the barn where the same blue banner now hung above the cows. The third time, Rowan broke 1 obsidian block before they crossed. The portal shut down. Purple particles continued to drift from the empty frame. "It is not the portal moving us," Alex said. "It is the world." Sunset approached. They needed another route. Rowan suggested the old mine. The chamber beneath bedrock had thrown them into the river, which meant Herobrine's passages could cross impossible distances. If they entered the hidden corridor and found a branch leading outside the affected chunks, they might escape the loop. It was a dreadful plan. It was also the only one they had. They left Flint with 2 wolves in the barn. Steve hated doing it, but the animal had refused the stairs before, and a narrow underground chase was no place for it. He fed Flint, removed the lead, and ordered the wolf to sit. At the kitchen, the oak stairs reopened before they touched the floor. The corridor beyond had changed. The item frames were empty. No lost tools remained. Each frame now held a map of Cedar Vale at a different age. The first dirt shelter, the wooden house, the bridge, the trading hall, the windmill. The final map showed the valley after all 3 players had left. Every building was gone. Only the gold monument remained. They passed it quickly. The 2x2 tunnel descended through stone, then deep slate, then blocks Steve did not recognize. Some appeared black until viewed from the side. Others held textures from grass, water, and sky on the same face. The coordinates stopped changing. Ahead, someone placed a torch. The soft click echoed down the corridor. "Who is there?" Rowan called. Steve and Alex glared at him. A voice answered from the dark. "It is me." It was Rowan's voice. The real Rowan raised his crossbow. Another torch appeared farther ahead, revealing the back of a player in iron armor. A carved pumpkin covered its head. "Do not follow him," the false Rowan said. The torch went out. Footsteps ran toward them. Alex fired. The corridor flashed with the enchantment glow of her arrow. For one frame, they saw the other Rowan sprinting on all fours, head twisted backward, beneath the pumpkin. Then it struck. Steve's shield absorbed the first blow. The impact carried no weapon sound, only a burst of static and whispers. Alex's sword passed through the creature. Rowan ignited the floor, and blue soulfire sprang up instead of orange flame. The creature stopped inside it. Its iron armor melted away. The carved pumpkin fell, revealing Steve's face beneath. White eyes opened. Herobrine stepped through the soul fire. They ran. The passage split again and again. Rowan marked the left route with dust, but the red line curled behind them into letters. Stay. Alex threw an ender pearl down the right tunnel. Steve followed. Rowan's pearl struck the wall behind them, dropping him several blocks short. Herobrine appeared between them. For the first time, he attacked with his hands. He struck Rowan once. The redstone builder flew backward and hit the wall. His totem of undying activated in a flare of green and gold. Before he could stand, Herobrine leaned close and whispered something only Rowan heard. All the torches became white. Steve charged, swinging the old wooden pickaxe. It was an absurd weapon, but when it touched Herobrine's shoulder, the impossible white durability bar shortened. Herobrine recoiled. Cracks appeared across his blue shirt like fractures in a block. Within them, Steve saw other places: a leafless forest, a sand pyramid, a dark ocean, a house burning in fog. Alex pulled Rowan away. Steve struck again. The wooden pickaxe broke. Herobrine vanished with it. The tunnel shook. Blocks fell into empty blackness on both sides. Ahead, purple portal light spilled across the floor. They ran toward it and entered together. Steve emerged in the nether hub. Heat washed over him. The familiar tunnel stretched east and west, built from blackstone and packed ice. Blue lanterns hung from chains. For one relieved second, nothing moved. Alex stumbled through behind him. The portal closed. Rowan did not appear. Steve relit the obsidian. Purple light returned. He stepped through and emerged from the same portal in the nether. Alex tried and received the same result. The doorway no longer connected to Cedar Vale. In the chat, a grey message appeared. Rowan left the world. Then a second message followed. Rowan joined the world. "Rowan!" Alex called. No answer came through the portal. They checked the player list. Steve, Alex, Rowan, and beneath them, the nameless fourth connection. Rowan's health indicator was full. His position marker appeared on Steve's compass, moving through the nether tunnel behind them. They saw his name tag first. It floated in the darkness beyond the nearest soul lantern, drawing closer, one block at a time. Steve raised his sword. Alex stood beside him, holding the blue orchid in one hand and her shield in the other. Rowan stepped into the light. His armor was gone. His face looked normal. His eyes were brown. He stopped several blocks away and lifted both empty hands. "It is me," he said. Steve heard the same words from the tunnel. Another Rowan stood at the edge of the next lantern's light. Then a third name tag appeared behind Alex. The blue flames dimmed. All three Rowans spoke together. "He showed me what is under spawn." Their eyes became white. Steve grabbed Alex and ran west along the ice road, the tunnel filled with footsteps behind them, too many to count. Bells began ringing from Cedar Vale, though the overworld was a dimension away. They reached an emergency shelter and sealed the iron door. Rowan had built the room months earlier beside a warped forest. It contained beds, food, spare armor, and an ender chest. Steve blocked the entrance with obsidian while Alex set respawn anchors along the wall. The footsteps stopped outside. For the rest of the night, nothing tried to enter. Steve and Alex sat beneath the blue lantern and listened to the nether breathe. The warped trees whispered beyond the shelter. Lava popped somewhere below. Eventually, the player list changed. Rowan's name disappeared. The nameless line remained. At dawn, in a place that had no dawn, Steve opened the written book one final time. Every page was blank except the last. It showed a map of the nether shelter. 2 small markers sat inside, one blue and one green. A third marker stood directly behind them. Steve turned. The room was empty. Then Rowan's voice came softly from inside the obsidian wall. "Steve," it whispered, "why did you leave me with him?"